Hey there. Today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite characters in Marvel Crisis Protocol to play that may be collecting dust in your collection. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Marvel Crisis Protocol now has over 100 characters. And even though we have some duplicate characters in name like Doctor Strange, Black Widow, Peter, each of these characters is unique and plays differently than the others. And with only 10 characters making it into a roster, and even fewer than that on the table for games, it has gotten to the point where getting all of the new characters on the table is difficult, let alone some of my first loves from the game. So I want to talk about some characters that deserve another look. But before we dive in, I want to give a couple of shoutouts to the Guild sponsors, Tritex Games based in the EU and War Room Hobbies based here in Tennessee. Both are great local gaming stores that have game nights at their stores and are supporting their local communities. So, if you are shopping online anyways, please consider using them as an option to support an LGS instead of a big warehouse company like Amazon. And to help beat those prices, I have some codes that will save you even more off of their already discounted prices. If you use the code TritexGGCP5 at checkout, you'll save an extra 5% off from Tritex's MPC selection, and if you check out at War Room Hobbies, you can use the code MCP2022 for an extra 10% off of your order. And even though we don't have a release date yet for Nick Fury, Daredevil, and Elektra, they are all now up for pre-order with the previously mentioned discounts available. But if you're already shopping from your LGS, that's awesome, keep supporting them, we understand. If you are still wanting a way to support the Guild's videos or podcasts, check out our Patreon page. For as little as $1 a month or $12 a year, you help us continue to put out content for Marvel Crisis Protocol, and the podcast, and here on YouTube. We also have a monthly giveaway thanks to Tritex. All you need to do to enter is be subscribed to the channel and leave a comment on a video the same month that that video was released. And enough about all of that, let's now talk about some of these left behind heroes and villains. And now, there are plenty of reasons that some of these characters are probably not seeing too much play as of late, from their age, nerfs, or just a release that flew by. So as a disclaimer, these characters might not be being played a lot by my local crew only, and maybe they're seeing a lot of play elsewhere, your tables, etc. But regardless, here are my characters that I think deserve a second look at. And I'm going to start with Taskmaster. There are a lot of things that I like about him, and I'll be honest, I know he isn't one that I've been putting on the table myself recently, mostly because I haven't been playing the affiliations I like him in. So, to start, here's what I like about Taskmaster. He is arguably one of the best spenders in the game. He just will always roll 4 more dice than the opponent has defense for the attack, and the opponent loses out on any defensive tech such as rerolls, cover, or anything else involving modifying the dice. And all of this for only 2 power. Sure, you don't want to do this to a character who only has 2 physical defense because you could just do a sword strike, but from there it's a 7-die attack for 2 power, and it just keeps getting better and better after that. The other thing I'm a big fan of is how defensive he is. He has 11 total stamina, which isn't a ton more than the average 3-threat character, but once you take into account his martial artist and ability to start rolling extra defense dice when he is targeted by more than 1 attack in a turn, he suddenly becomes extremely durable. And the icing on the cake for all of that is he also has Rogue Agent. So while this ability isn't always prudent for list building, it does add some extra flexibility if you don't have certain affiliated tactic cards you are trying to run for the team. As for where I personally use him, Criminal Syndicate still appreciates a cheap, durable body, and he's in affiliation for getting the Rogue Agent, so he actually gets to play those tactic cards. But I'm also a fan of him in Mystique's Brotherhood as a good character to help her go wide, stay in affiliation, and there aren't many character cards that you're trying to play there. Sam's Avengers gives him some extra healing and mobility from the leadership, which is one of his main problems. And finally, the one that is just kind of cute is with Storm's leadership giving him cover. Your opponent either has to attack into 1 guaranteed block or into Martial Artist. Either way, it's annoying to deal with. And again, there is some extra utility with her hop that can help him get in range of targets without having to spend an action to move. And all of this leads me to why he probably hasn't been seeing much time on the table. And it pretty much comes down to the bit where he doesn't do anything flashy as a durable body. He doesn't really offer up any questions to your opponent outside of, can you push me off a point because I'm hard to kill? He doesn't have a push or a throw, and he doesn't have any offensive dice modification to make him hit harder. Now, both X-Men and Brotherhood also have more rounded out rosters, so he isn't as needed there anymore, but I think he can still shine in his home affiliation with Criminal Syndicate, and even a Sam Spam list that relies on having several durable bodies that just cover the board. Next up is another 3-threat that used to see the table a lot, probably even too much, but has lost a lot of that time more recently, and that is Valkyrie. Valkyrie is a character I loved having on the table with Cabal, Avengers, whoever, it didn't really matter, and I still love putting her on the table and letting her tear through enemies. She has going for her all the things that Taskmaster doesn't, and vice versa. They're just kind of opposites in that way. Valkyrie has a size 2 throw, a charge, and a superpower that lets her modify her attacks to be more successful. All good things, and they were too good, which is why she was one of the few characters to get hit with the Nerf bat. But not that hard. Her throw went up from its cost of 2 to a cost of 3, and like any other character with a flurry on an attack, it is now harder to get the flurry trigger to get that extra attack off. Now, as someone who wasn't a big fan of spending the power on her spender most of the time anyways, the only nerf that really happened to her for me was the throw costing 1 more power to prevent her from having access to it turn 1 guaranteed, which was needed even if it does turn off some fun Brotherhood shenanigans. Because a turn 1 character throw is good enough to go into any team, especially when it's stapled to a character who's also just a death dealer for the rest of the game. But really, I think she is still in really good shape as a 3-threat. Her throw, while not active on turn 1, is still relevant for the rest of the game, and her damage output thanks to Warrior of Legend is still very impressive, and should put her among the ranks of Zemo and X-23 as far as damage consistency potential. So throw her into Steve's Avengers, which has been a lot more popular since his buffs, and she still gets the turn 1 throw. Not to mention she's in Defenders, Asgard, and A-Force. Not to mention affiliations like Dark Dimension and Cabal that just help give her more power to do what she wants to do. Because she's one of the few characters who can easily spend 10 power during any given activation. And to keep with the theme of characters who had a fall from center stage, I want to talk about Medusa next. She is really good, and for a time was taken just about everywhere because of her insane control, damage output, while also being tanky. And she really still has the insane control, and is quite a bit tanky. The damage output is still there, just not as consistent as it used to be. So let's break it down. Defensively, she has 3s across the board with 6 stamina that is then helped by a defensive reroll. So nothing mind-blowing, but she also has the added benefit of not letting enemy characters modify attack dice when attacking into her. So no Warrior of Legend, no rerolls, none of that kind of stuff. So this won't help when the dice are just naturally crazy, but it keeps your opponent's consistency against her quite low. So all of that is good. Then her builder is range 3 5-dice attack with a reroll that on a wild will let you push a size 3 or smaller character in any direction. And if you manage a wild and a crit after the push resolves, you get to make the attack again, and it can target anyone in range. So basically a 6-die attack thanks to the reroll, which means there is a 30% chance of getting the flurry and about a 70% chance of getting the push, I think. So you would think she's probably already pretty good, or at least I already would, but there are 2 more things that make her really stand out. For both control and damage output, she has a size 3 character throw superpower. And additionally, she has an ability to reposition herself and her allies, letting her choose an ally that is at range 2 and then placing them within range 1 of her, or her within range 1 of them. And because the power is only limited to once per turn per character, Medusa could, say, place a Hulk in front of her, and then place herself in front of Hulk for a nice leapfrog leap. So her flurries got harder to hit, but otherwise she can still be an absolute menace just by herself, not to mention when you start giving her synergies with more power, rerolls, or dice. The hardest part about getting her into a roster now is really that there are just more and more of the teams out there have really well filled out rosters. but I still love throwing her into the affiliated home of A-Force, and Humans too, but I just don't play them very often. Really, Cabal with Zemo is a nice combo, as putting her, as is putting her into Midnight Sun or Storm's X-Men. The ability to add some extra distance to the royal decrees is really nice. As for why she isn't seeing the table as much, even though she is still really good, well, I think there are two explanations. There is the general line of thinking that once something gets nerfed, it's no longer worth playing, even though she is still really solid, just because she isn't what she used to be. And there is also a chance that people just no longer want to use her because they have used her a lot and kind of got tired of the character and want to try new things. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're looking to add a nasty 4-threat into your list, she just simply isn't one to overlook as a good splash character. And now I've just got 2 more suggestions, and I guess I'll keep with all the girls together. So I'm going to be talking about Gwen, aka Spider-Gwen, aka Ghost Spider. There is a lot to love about her kit. Turn 1 control, high mobility, lots of control, potentially a lot of damage when she is lined up for a good double tap, and some more support and control. Everything on her card is relevant over the course of a game. Impact Webbing plus Webline gives her guaranteed push on turn 1, and maybe even 2 if you get the wild. Spider Technique can let her hit really hard if you get it lined up for a double tap, especially if that first attack is a freestyle beatdown, or you can just let her move, attack, and then move long again, skipping around the board. And then to some degree, she can support her allies by yanking them to safety and out of attack range with Lifesaver. Now, she didn't get tuned down during the 1.5 update, so why is she not being seen? Right now, I think there are 2 reasons. Usually, your out-of-affiliation 3-threat characters are there as consistent damage dealers, whether that's through rerolls, dice modifying, rapid fire, or whatever else you want. Gwen can be that, but she is much more of a control piece similar to Shuri. And if you aren't playing control, the need isn't as high to play them when you can bring in a character like Domino or Baron Zemo. She also has the problem of not having anything to protect her own frail frame of 5 stamina with 3s across the board. And that leads me to my total package of a character who I can't understand why he just isn't seen more right now, and that is Loki. Specifically Loki with the Mind Gem. Sure, you could go Space instead with its update, but I have found the Mind Gem to be more useful. So Loki is kind of a crazy character who, at first glance, looks like a cool control piece between his bubble of annoyance, but he is also a surprisingly durable character who is really dangerous on offense. Trickster is certainly his more well-known ability to get out of trouble when it comes for him, but I Am a God is also an extremely useful tool as long as you have power for it. And just to put into perspective how good I Am a God is, I just want to mention that the only other character who counts blanks or as successes on offense is Corvus Glaive. Now, sure, Corvus has more damage tools like Pierce and the Reality Gem, but Loki having the same level of consistency for less power than Corvus is awesome. And doing 5-die attacks that build power back where you see successes on 6 out of 8 die faces is fantastic. And because the timing is before rolling dice, it's one of the few abilities on defense where you get to see what your opponent rolled before you decide to spend power to count the blanks. So he is surprisingly tanky for a character with only 5 stamina, and like Captain America, you probably don't mind him getting dazed as long as he got to activate first, because then in addition to effectively giving everybody the root special condition within range 4, you also give those enemy characters the Hex special condition. All, again, while being evasive and possibly pretty tanky. One last thing I will mention that works for both him and Quicksilver and their superpowers that let them move, and that is that you don't have to move away. I have used it to get Loki onto objectives that he was pushed off of. Sure, he still then has to take the punch, but it has versatility to get him into position for attacks, objectives, and hey, maybe even puts you in range of a bodyguard that you then get to use. As far as affiliations I like to play him in, Avengers and Cabal are certainly a couple of the higher ranked ones because they fuel his power supply, But really, he is a great tech piece that in any roster you could play to have counters into Web Warriors, Black Order, or anyone else, especially on centerline objectives like Research Station or Gamma Shelters. And with that, I am done for today. If you have enjoyed my thoughts and are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for a weekly dose of MCP content in the form of reviews, battle reports, and you can also find the Gamers Guild podcast on several different podcast platforms. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.